Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and today another detailed forecast update coming your way for the 3rd of November 2024. We're going to get stuck into things over in the southeast of Queensland where severe thunderstorms were very much present overnight. We'll also talk about a potential severe thunderstorm outbreak extending up from New South Wales into the southeast of Queensland on Monday and Tuesday. We'll give a tropical weather update as well, of course that cyclone weather update. We'll touch on the heatwave extending through central Australia, and we'll talk about 2 rain bombs expected to develop across eastern Australia and one expected to develop across parts of Western Australia. So all of that plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. If you're brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing. The support lately has been much appreciated. But let's get stuck straight into things. So yeah, just before we talk about the forecast, I would just like to touch on and recap on those thunderstorms overnight outside of the Taroom and Rolleston area. They were quite powerful indeed. Certainly a lot of severe thunderstorms around between Taroom and Rolleston. Some of them for heavy rainfall, damaging winds and large hailstones. Rolleston actually picked up a very healthy 28mm of rain, with peak rainfall accumulations up to 65mm outside of Taroom from these very slow-moving and quite powerful thunderstorms, to be frank. There were a few supercells embedded in there as well. I wish I got screenshots of some of the radar imagery on the high resolution maps from the Bureau of Meteorology. However, I missed out on that, but there were some beautiful hook echoes on some of these thunderstorms here. So a classic thunderstorm outbreak across Queensland's Thunderstorm Alley across the central part of the state. Some beautiful storms there, and people around there would have been treated to a beautiful display of lightning, thunder, heavy rainfall across some locations as well, and much needed heavy rainfall. So again, for more places than not, this was a welcome thunderstorm outbreak. A lot of places picked up the good sides of these thunderstorms with that rainfall, without many of the negative side effects such as damaging winds and large hailstones. There were some places that did cop some whopping hailstones. Actually, I believe the biggest reports are up towards 5 or 6 centimetres. But again, for the most part, these thunderstorms here they weren't tame, but they certainly weren't dangerous thunderstorms. That was fantastic to see for the central parts of Queensland. They did really need a bit of a weather event like this. Now, moving forward, we do have a thunderstorm outbreak on the forecast now for this Monday, tomorrow, and Tuesday. So let's take a look at what we're expecting right now. Throughout the rest of today, a couple of showers possible along the central Queensland and the Sunshine Coastline, a few storms possible inland towards Billawheeler, but nothing crazy expected. Into the northeast of New South Wales by tomorrow afternoon at around 2 or 3 p.m. local time, we're going to see an outbreak of thunderstorms start to take hold outside of Tamworth, Armidale and Coffs Harbour. Now, these thunderstorms, they're not going to be strong right out of the gate, but they will strengthen at a consistent pace throughout the course of the night, peaking in intensity at around 5 or 6 p.m. The chance of severe thunderstorms is there outside of Coffs Harbour and Grafton, but I mean, just taking a look at this forecast here, I don't think a widespread severe thunderstorm outbreak looks overly likely at this time. You can see the Axis G3 model, which is the one that I check for those severe thunderstorms in these forecasts. We're really not looking at a big thunderstorm outbreak here, certainly nothing crazy and severe. But we will keep a close eye on these storms nonetheless. You can see a few severe storms do look possible, but like I've been saying, not likely at this time. These thunderstorms later on in the afternoon and evening will slowly creep across the Queensland and New South Wales border into the southern parts of Queensland outside of Warwick and Stanthorpe, and maybe as far north as Toowoomba and the Gold Coast, but they will certainly be on the way out by then. This will happen probably closer to 11 or midnight at night, so again, really nothing to be concerned about. We're not expecting widespread thunderstorms here. And for those actually excited for a good thunderstorm, well, tomorrow is unfortunately not going to be the night for that. Now, the risks with these thunderstorms do look to be at this time damaging winds. I think heavy rainfall and large hailstones are very unlikely with a severe thunderstorm setup like this. If these thunderstorms do go severe warned, it will be for those damaging winds. They're expected to be relatively slow moving. They're not going to have really any motion. They're not going to be in a rush to get anywhere, that's for sure. But we will keep a close eye on things. It doesn't look like anything's going to spring up and surprise us. These thunderstorms here do look for the most part to be relatively tame on the forecast. Anything can happen though in the northeast of New South Wales and the southeast of Queensland, so it's always worth talking about these systems, especially this time of the year. Things can get out of hand very quickly at this time of the year, as we've seen time and time again. Now, Tuesday is the day that I'm most interested in. We are actually expecting a couple of severe thunderstorms to fire up along the immediate southeastern corner of Queensland on Tuesday afternoon. You can see them here firing up in the in the western suburbs of Brisbane, extending down towards Boonah, inland towards Toowoomba, Warwick and Stanthorpe, and a couple of storms also expected down along the Gold Coast and then even further south into the northern parts of New South Wales. Now these thunderstorms here do actually look quite gnarly on the forecast here, and they're going to be formed by a merging of warm, dry air sweeping up from the southeast into the southeastern corner of Queensland, southwest rather. They're going to be sweeping up from the southwest and meeting into the southeastern corner of Queensland, and the warm, moist air converging along the coastline coming in from the northeast. Now, this is going to provide the prime conditions for severe thunderstorms to develop at around 4 or 5 p.m. local time as the sun is slowly setting across the central parts and the southeastern parts of Queensland. Thunderstorms most likely to fire up around the Boonah and Bow Desert area, as we saw a couple of days ago with that monster severe storm that crossed into the Brisbane area, and then slowly extending further up the Queensland coastline. We'll see some thunderstorms develop up there. Now, these thunderstorms will quickly develop and mature into severe thunderstorms, especially as you get further on up the coast, up towards Kingaroy and Gympie. That we're definitely expecting severe thunderstorms up there, and a widespread area of severe thunderstorms also expected to develop into the Brisbane metro area, and especially through the northern suburbs as well. These thunderstorms will be strong, they will be powerful, they will have large hailstones, damaging winds and heavy rainfall in them as well, and I would not be writing out the risk of intense rainfall, destructive winds and giant hailstones, especially for the Sunshine Coast. Conditions look beautiful for these systems, that's for sure. And just taking a look at the Access G3 model here, you can see they're really calling for a nasty severe thunderstorm outbreak, but in stark contrast to what the Eastern WF is saying, they're keeping this along the across the border into the New South Wales side of things, just outside of Lismore and Grafton, and I'm not entirely sure what to make of this here. I do believe that we're going to see severe thunderstorms. It's pretty much guaranteed into the southeast of Queensland as well. However, just considering the stark contrast between these two forecast models, which isn't a great contrast in terms of distance, but it is a massive contrast in terms of what places are going to get impacts from these severe thunderstorms. The Eastern WF model, which I would class as being the more reliable forecast model, calling for these thunderstorms into the southeast of Queensland, up into the Sunshine Coast as well. But the Access G3 keeping them out of Queensland for the most part and to the northeast of New South Wales. Now, if I was to kind of spin my head on this, I would say that the Eastern WF forecast is the most likely to play out like this, and I'd use the Access G3 forecast model only to kind of get an idea of how strong these thunderstorms are going to get. Spoiler alert, pretty strong by the looks of things on this forecast. And what that basically means is that I'm more inclined to follow this forecast here, the Eastern WF forecast, and I believe that you guys should as well. I would definitely say that there are some good thunderstorms on the way for the Brisbane area, especially into the northern suburbs as well. And I reckon the Gold Coast could also get a couple of good storms as well at Tuesday afternoon and evening. We've talked about what's driving this in terms of the convergence with the air, but let's talk about the convective available potential energy. Some beautiful values look to be setting themselves up across parts of Queensland, especially out into the outer suburbs of Brisbane and Ipswich. Take a look at this. Some very big values here. That's about twice the average for this time of the year, which means these thunderstorms are going to have twice the potential energy to fire up into dramatic thunderstorms, which it looks to be the case at this time. I mean, we're really talking about a big thunderstorm outbreak by the looks of things on Tuesday afternoon and evening. Probably not so much in terms of area, but definitely in terms of what thunderstorms we're expecting. Some of them are going to be quite strong indeed, and a good little energy ball as well situated over the top of New South Wales, which will also provide some thunderstorms there, a lot of fuel to go boom. So all in all, looking like a pretty healthy setup here for these thunderstorms. They're going to have a field day on this on Tuesday afternoon and evening. Certainly some severe systems are expected, and is it also just me, but I believe Tuesday and Thursday have been the hot days this year for severe thunderstorms across the southeast of Queensland. It just seems like we're always talking about an outbreak happening on either Tuesday or Thursday. And it's not really, well, it's not often that it's on other days. So again, that is just a little bit of interesting food for thought. It certainly looks like this one, a Tuesday outbreak, of course, it's going to be quite a good one indeed. Now, fortunately for people that are getting a bit sick of the thunderstorms, especially if they're causing damage and tree downings and power cuts and whatnot, you've got a full 3, maybe 4 days without those thunderstorms across the southeast of Queensland as a whole. And by extension into Brisbane, it looks like you've got about a week without those severe thunderstorms extending into the Brisbane area. We can see that there is going to be a big dry period across parts of southeastern Queensland, especially for this time of the year. It's not often that we see 4 or 5 days without thunderstorms. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and potentially Sunday, a very limited outbreak of thunderstorms is expected across parts of Queensland, which is good news for people that are just getting sick and tired of all of these thunderstorms firing up on a consistent basis. However, it is storm season. We typically see this type of stuff. We hang out for these thunderstorms at this time of the year, that's for sure. And a lot of people in the southeast of Queensland get very excited for these thunderstorms. So I know that is going to be disappointing news for a few people. And this also leads me nicely into the next part of the video, which is that rainfall event that we're talking about. Well, I talked about at the start of the video, where we've got a couple of heavy showers and storms expected to develop into the parts of south central Queensland and into the northeast of New South Wales by the end of the forecast period next Monday and Tuesday, the 11th and 12th of November. Now, this is interesting indeed. It's stuff that we see for this time of the year, but it is a little bit too kind of widespread to be called a severe thunderstorm outbreak at this time. This is definitely going to have something more to do with rainfall and low pressure than it is going to have to do with thunderstorms and troughs. And as such, it's going to be something with a little bit more uncertainty that we're not going to be able to really tell what's actually going to happen with the forecast until probably later on next week. So I'm just going to leave this as a bit of a heads up and a little bit of food for thought for some of the people across the north of New South Wales and the southeast of Queensland. You've got a bit of rainfall and potentially some heavy thunderstorms coming your way towards the start of next fortnight on, like I said, Monday and Tuesday, the 11th and 12th of November. Certainly something worth keeping an eye on at this time, but again, nothing to be worrying about at all. And yeah, that basically does it for the southeast of Queensland in terms of thunderstorms and rainfall. I would just like to give a brief tropical weather update as well. It's the same as yesterday, and I'll roll it into the cyclone update as well. We're not expecting anything in terms of significant tropical rainfall or tropical cyclones over the next 10 days. And I mean, that goes without saying. We've not really got anything on the radar, not for at least the next sort of 2 weeks. Beyond that, definitely by the end of November, I'm expecting some cyclones to start to begin to spin up, especially across parts of the WA coastline or off the WA coastline. We talked about yesterday how there is a bit of a spin up and a tropical disturbance expected to materialise somewhere in the middle of the Indian Ocean. It is still way out of the Australian area of responsibility, but this is the type of stuff that we are looking for at this time of the year. And you can see this disturbance here, if it continues on the trend that we're seeing on the forecast, it will eventually become a tropical cyclone. But this is the sort of stuff that we're watching out for. We more like to see it over here to call for tropical cyclone activity in the Australian area of responsibility, which doesn't look like it's going to be the case for the time being. Anyways, we'll keep things on the rainfall and talk about the rainfall that's expected to develop across parts of WA. We actually had a cold front move through the southwest of Western Australia, and it did bring some showers and a bit of rainfall, a bit of steady rainfall to the Perth metro area, just to finish off and round out winter and just provide a couple of showers for people's lawns as summer turns around. And it certainly does help that little bit of rainfall. Some locations picking up 10 to 15 millimetres along the south coast. That's much needed rainfall there. Unfortunately, my gauge only picked up 1.2 millimetres over a 48-hour period, so pretty disappointing. And for the most part, a lot of the rainfall across the southwest was also pretty disappointing. Some showers, as you saw, still persisting into the wheat belt, and they're still recovering from their heatwave conditions that they received on Friday. It was very hot out there, so the rainfall will be much welcome. But you can see into the central parts of Western Australia and parts of South Australia and the Northern Territory, heavy rainfall is on the forecast, up towards 50 to 60 millimetres of the stuff. Most of it is from thunderstorms, and it's also going to be happening Saturday and Sunday, the 9th and the 10th of November, so next weekend. It is still a long way out in the future. However, the forecast models still don't really know what to make of it. The GFS is actually calling for something very similar to the East Mobile forecast model, which is great to see because they're both those forecast models are by far the most reliable forecast models that we have access to on windy.com. So when they both say pretty much the same thing like they are saying, that is pretty good model congruency there. And it's very rare that we get an agreeing forecast, especially 10 days out into a desert part of Australia. So again, that is really good to see. And it's a testament to how far the forecasting data has come over the past couple of years. Now, the Axis G3 is calling for a bit of a rain bomb across interior parts of Australia, especially along the Northern Territory and the South Australia border, with peak rainfall accumulations up towards 70, 80, maybe even 90 millimetres up there. A lot of rainfall, typical for this time of the year, but still a lot, and certainly enough to prompt some flooding watches, I would imagine, from the Bureau of Meteorology. I reckon if this stays on the forecast until about Wednesday or Thursday, then I'll be very happy to make a very detailed forecast update about this, just ironing out all of the details. But this is certainly something that's more of a kind of hopeful on the forecast and something that we're going to have to take with a heavy pinch of salt, as opposed to something that I'm going to give a detailed forecast on right now. And just to wrap up this video, I would like to talk about the heatwave conditions extending across interior parts of Australia. It is hot, and it's going to be a hot day there across much of interior Australia as well today. Temperatures already into the high 30s for parts of Queensland, South Australia, and the Northern Territory, and even into WA as well, with temperatures expected to head into the early to mid 40s for the first time for some of these locations for this summer by this afternoon. Temperatures as well going to be blisteringly hot tomorrow as well. Temperatures up in towards the early to mid 40s expected for some of these locations, and that heat once again making itself established into interior parts of WA after a couple of days of cooler weather this weekend. So it is going to get hot. It's typical for this time of the year. And for those of you in central parts of Australia, just make sure you are taking all necessary precautions to stay cool, drinking plenty of water, staying inside, staying under the air conditioning if you've got access to it, because it is going to be a hot one. Typical for this time of the year, this weather is. I mean, this is nothing out of the ordinary. We're in November now, which is A, one of the hottest months of the year for Australia, but B, it's the Australian summer, so temperatures below 40 degrees would be not unusual, but it's certainly on a cooler day for parts of the Northern Territory, South Australia, Queensland, and WA, the locations that we're talking about in this forecast here. Very warm weather indeed, and certainly what we would expect for this time of the year. Anyways, that is about all that I have time for today. It's been a bit of a quicker forecast update compared to the most recent ones. Thank you so much for watching the video to this point. A special shout out to the channel sponsors. Their names are on screen right now, and I could not run this show without them. So again, their support is much appreciated. That is all from me today. If you've got any feedback or question, then please do leave it in the comment section down below, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.